This is Wandering Universe. Today, I'm going to explore a wondrous world of knowledge from a land far away from the city of Alexandria. It was known as one of the greatest all-time places for learning. It may not be of your interest to visit, but it certainly does to me. So, let's go exploring. Hello, and welcome to Earth. Yes, that's a planet we're living on, and as you can see, it's a beautiful blue ball. How marvellous. Today, we're going to explore it, but we're not going to explore this part of the planet. I'm going to move it around, and I want you to guess where we're going to go. Here we go. So, not Africa, not Egypt, not Saudi Arabia, but this part. We're going to India. Where we're going to explore today in India? Well, come on in. Let's have a look. So that, as you can see, this is where we are. A very ancient place, a very ancient continent that stems back all the way to the ancient Siberian era. Now, as you can see, we're going to this part of India. And where we're going to go, I'm going to actually type it in and you can guess where we're going to explore today. Okay, you guessed it. We're going to Nalanda University and library. The reason why I mentioned library is because that was part of the extension of the university. Now, I'll just go out just a little bit so you got an idea where it's situated. It's situated in the northeast region of the country, and it's just borders off between Nepal, Bhutan, and Tibet, and believe it or not, Myanmar and China. So it shares its culture and its parameters with neighbouring countries, as you can see right here, and also with Pakistan and the Indian Ocean, or the Bay of Bengal, which becomes part of the Indian Ocean. Now, what I find very interesting about India and also this part of the continent is that there's a number of underwater land masses, as you all know in previous videos that I talked about India. And it was a lot larger back then because there were several landmass bridges that connected to other continents, including to eastern parts of Africa and southern parts of Saudi Arabia. Now, I say where Gujarat is situated, just up here in the northwest region, there is a city called the lost city of Dwarka. The lost city of Dwarka is around here and around here. So it comes in two parts, but it's mainly in the Bay of Cambay. From there I talked about in a previous video, you can go and check it out yourself in your own time, about the lost city of Dwarka and how it's submerged underneath that area. What's interesting is that this underwater city is in proximity to this area, the Nalanda University and library. Did this ancient ruin a long time ago share some sort of relevance or a connection with the underwater city of Dwarka? Back then, it wasn't submerged. It was sitting on a landmass a long time ago. We're talking about 9,000, 10,000 years ago, since the last ice age, before, or shall I say, prior to the melting of the ice. I'd say the city of Dwarka was built and occurred around the same time as Nalanda University. Very interesting connection there. Now, I also found something very interesting. Nalanda University connects somewhere around here, where Wuhan is, but not directly towards Wuhan. Around here is, that's right, you guessed it, the pyramids in China, in Xi'an, China. They're connected to there. They share a correlation with Nalanda University and the city of Dwarka. Now, these civilizations existed around the time of when these pyramids were built in China. That means that the estimated age has to be around the time of the last ice age, which means that it is unlikely that we were capable geographically to create these pyramids, this structure and that structure with limited knowledge that we had about geometric engineering and also learning about the celestial star mapping and along the celestial equator. So remember, this is bordering on the celestial equator and including Dwarka and the pyramids in China. So that's just an interesting fact there. Okay, here we go. Let's go inside. I'm not going to spend too much time going on about it. So here we go. All right, so we're really going right in now. There it is. I'll just switch this off for a moment. Okay, here we are. So I'll just take that away. Here we are. This is what it looks like from the air. According to this satellite image, you're seeing these square, rectangular, circuit board style structures that once had buildings built on top of these structures. And let's go in a closer look. The town of Nalanda is just next door, and I'd say that these townships existed a lot later. This township, I'd say, Nalanda University, was more than just a university and a library. It also, I'd say, prior to that, it was abandoned. Then the Buddhist monks found the place, but I'll get into that in the video. But I'd say it was a city. This was a city on its own. And what's interesting about this is that it's situated near this river right here that flows nearby this area right here. Okay, this university library right here. So that's interesting. So it was a river system that flowed in to funnel water through this complex, this city. And there's only one water system underneath one of these structures. All right, so I'll just go out a little bit. So, does this, and I'll give you an interesting question here, does this layout resemble something like the Teotihuacan pyramids in Mexico? I'd say it does. Does this layer have a resemblance to the Giza pyramids? Possibly. Does this layout also correlate with ones in Xi'an, China? Maybe. But we need more evidence. It needs to be further researched. All right. So I'm going to go in a little bit closer. I'm going to talk more about this in a video. But in the meantime, I'm going to give you a nice viewing from the air. So what I'll do, I'll just go in a little bit closer, just so you can get an idea of what it looks like. All right, now you're going to have your viewing. So I'm going to turn this around, and here we are. Enjoy. Alright, so there you have it. That's what it looks like from the air. Now, I'm going to turn it around. and I'm going to show you something interesting. Come on in. Let's take a look. Now that looks interesting. Doesn't that look familiar to you? Sure does to me. Okay, let's have a look. Something else there as well. What do you think that is? Okay, look how it's laid out. Especially this one, and also check this out. Yes. What do you think that is? Well, you're going to find out in this video. In the meantime, I'll leave this for your own viewing pleasure. And now, let's explore Nalanda University and Library. Enjoy. A long time ago, humans were developing a new way of reading and writing through petroglyphs, pictures detailing objects captured on a cave wall. This was humans' first attempt at telling a story using symbols, motifs, and emblems to graph a picture of what they witnessed. Then, as time went on, humans learned a new form of writing, using sentences, paragraphs, and words on a page, adopting more and more complex techniques that led to a new stage of development: learning. This was humanity's evolutionary change that enhanced a new brain function beyond the limits of their instinctive program. A new way to understanding a concept. From there, we began to think and do, to put our thoughts on a blank page or on a canvas, expressing a need to look into a new dimension. The moment humans got a grasp on a new approach to learning, to build institutions that embodied a way to study, research, and explore our minds into the realm of new possibilities. This one institution did such a thing. It is called Nalanda University and Library in Patna, East India. Its conception came about in 427 CE, but some archaeologists claim it was established around the end of the final century BC. It became an ambitious enterprise undertaken by Buddhist monks who founded the place, but financially invested by Emperor Kumaragagupta of the Gupta kingdom. Like its sister library in Alexandria, he too had an insatiable appetite for knowledge to broaden his conquest not by sword, but by an intellectual pursuit of the inquiring mind. Not giving away specifics, but rumour has it that Buddha, yes Buddha, once paid a visit to check out this humble fortress of education. Yet there's no written evidence, just speculation. To the Buddhist monks, it was more than a prized real estate. It was a sanctuary of peace, tranquility, a quiet place to meditate, and reflect on one's research. As news travelled fast, it caught the attention of one dubious emperor. Meet Mauryan Emperor Ashoka the Great, a Buddhist crusader who preached Buddhism across entire continents from Bangladesh in India to as far away as Afghanistan. After hearing circulating rumours about a library in Egypt, it struck a chord with him to create an institution for the inquiring mind. A devout Buddhist, spreading the word of his doctrine was no easy task, but a tactic that will put him on the world stage. To spice up his royal image, he adopted a powerful strategy that would guarantee him a lifelong rulership. Knowledge. Restless, bored and agitated, he sought confirmation of this such rumour by enlisting his emissaries to find new civilizations to negotiate foreign trade. His emissaries did the honours and came back with delightful news. One of the places his emissaries visited was Alexandria and the Great Library. The others were Greece and Rome. After much contemplating, he sent them out to deliver a message to one particular king, and that was Ptolemy II. Ptolemy II kindly accepted his invitation to wine and dine at Ashoka's palace. Exchanging stories of their romanticised conquests, Ashoka fell for Ptolemy's magic spell to build back better. He remodelled his entire palace to emulate Persepolis. This political ploy awarded him the honourable member of the League of Emperors. From there, he began to finance a new building project to compete alongside Alexandria's title. Thus, the formation of the Nalanda University and Library was born. During the Roman occupation heyday, many feared scholars sidestepped their way out of trouble with an exit strategy. Hoping to find greener pastures for learning, they diverted their lives away from persecution and did the next best thing: relocate to a new home, and that new home became Nalanda University and Library, a place managed by intellectuals who humbly welcome scholars from all over the world seeking refuge and solidarity, engaging their time in learning a new philosophy, Buddhism. The moment the city of Alexandria foresaw its impending doom, Nalanda University and Library graciously took its place. It blossomed like a rose in the sunlight, complemented by its fancy name. It provided an array of stunning facilities that many scholars and students flocked desperately to enrol. It was the likes they've never seen, filled with dormitories, 3 libraries, study rooms, lecture halls, gardens, classrooms, and meditation halls for some downtime. According to Suan Sang, a resident Chinese scholar who wrote a detailed account of his time there, studied the manicured surrounds that bloomed in the morning sun. Some of its features he described were towers, pavilions, hamikas, and temples that soared to the sky, pools or ponds that complemented the monasteries, blue lotus red flowers that hung anywhere and everywhere, and divine mango trees. It was a scholar's dream to take up residence in such a humble abode. An institute that awarded scholars and students with grants and scholarly programs to undertake studies in a variety of courses from every field. You name it: science, astronomy, medicine, logic, metaphysics, philosophy, scriptures from Buddhist texts, Yoga Shastra, and more. Also to examine philosophical aspirations from well-known philosophers derived from Greece, China, and Persia. Okay, so you got all that? Good. Now let's get on with the real show. I took quite a fancy to its mosaic architecture, like a stroll through a display home centre. Speaking of such, here is a video that showcases its wondrous design.
Scientific excavations of Nalanda unearthed brick-built 6 temples and 9 monasteries, apart from some other smaller ones, arranged systematically, declaring Nalanda a unique planned establishment. The major monasteries and the temples are arranged in a row running north-south with about 100 feet wide open space in between. Generally, monasteries face to the west and are placed on the east of the pathway. The temples face to the east and are placed on the west of the pathway. There are some more monasteries like 1A, 1B, and some smaller ones. There are miniature shrines too. Further, there are many votive stupas clustered around temples and shrines. All the monasteries are similar in having a large central courtyard with row of cells and pillared veranda having well and furnace. There is a common entrance to the monastery, most of which were double-storied, with a flight of steps in the southwest corner. On one side of the entrance, there is a secret chamber accessed from the cell in the front through a narrow opening.
The concept layout is certainly a star attraction. Archaeologists are debating whether an apprentice architect could come up with the goods. Its craftsmanship is certainly dynamic, a feat only modern engineers would dream of building. For now, I'm ruling out the Buddhist monks and Ashoka. Besides, they would have had the engineer's touch to model this arrangement many times elsewhere. This oddly shaped layout looks like a giant jigsaw puzzle cut out from a cereal box. Sitting on a 14-hectare green strata, its unique architecture was stylized like a digital circuit motherboard. The red brick edifices give the appearance of a rudimentary grid-like strata made mostly from red bricks built by patient bricklayers. Since its excavation in the late 1800s, its abandoned pile of mess made archaeologists doubt their find. However, as they dug out most of the dusty sediment, they couldn't believe what they saw. A well-structured complex of 3 main buildings as high as 9 stories tall, surrounded by a row of 10 monasteries with enclosed individual T-shaped cell blocks facing out onto a large courtyard. Each courtyard carried its own unique signature layout, some with niches, stupas, and block platforms built like a patio overlooking the vast complex. Surprisingly, each cell block is shaped to a precise I or T-bar moulded to face the courtyard in exact proportion. Within the labyrinth grounds, they found more rows of large shrines or stupas made from brick and plaster that filled every space of the ruin. What makes this area so special is not the compound stratas themselves, it is this: a half-cut pyramidal-shaped structure with a featured sidestep incline. One side is a straight wall with a smooth brick finish. The other side shows grooves, indentations, rounded steps that incline down to the base, and each rounded arch is precisely cut to shape. The angle of this oddly shaped pyramidal structure shows precision in detail. 2 sides angle up to a rooftop patio, made from solid red brick with no cladding applied. Archaeologists have no idea if this pyramidal style structure grew into a much larger one, but the structure itself would make a highly convincing case that determines its true design. The idea that a larger capstone would have been placed on top of the standing one. Staircases starting from the north side zigzag up to the patio apex. Further out from the half-step pyramid overlooks a carefully laid out T and I shaped compounds that were used as dormitories by the monks. Built with uniform precision, it is hard to imagine that the monks would have had extensive stonemasonry experience to engineer such a complex structure as this. To the untrained eye, there are 3 other stone square bases encased with a surrounding wall. Could these square bases held up a pyramidal structure similar to that in Mexico and Zagat of Ur? So, the archaeologists are in limbo on trying to identify the true builders. So, let's take a pause and ponder on this video showing an aerial view of this spectacular polygon structure.
The most impressive monument is Temple number 3. a solid brick structure standing in the middle of a court constructed in 7 successive phases. The first 3, relatively very small in dimension, are buried deep in the interior. The 4 later are extensive structures. The 5th phase construction of 5th century CE is best preserved. It has 4 corner towers with rows of niches containing stucco figures of Buddha and Bodhisattvas. The 3 different staircases that can be seen to the north belong to the 5th, 6th and 7th extensions. These additions, by and large, followed the sequence plan of the prime structure. The shrine chamber on the top contained a colossal image of Buddha.
All right, so the details in the brickwork. Neatly stacked and precisely measured with little room for error. However, what you saw is the reconstructed version, done by Archaeologists' restoration project in the 1920s. Prior to that, it was a messy pile of distorted heap. But what made me do a double take upon observation was this. Each of these stone block bases were built with a purpose in mind, to withhold a large, unobstructed structure on top. The architecture of the other stone block bases would have possibly held a pyramid similar in style to that in Mexico, Guatemala, and Zagat of Ur. Yet the brickwork is flawless, with a smooth surface. The edges are remarkably accurate, square-shaped, and facing towards the main partial step pyramid. These square-shaped bases are covered with a wall of decorative patterns along with niches seated at the 4 corners. The centre shows a smaller stone base structure with steps levelled up to a flat top apex. However, these 3 stone square bases were not built in this manner. A large object that once stood on it would have been the final piece to its construction. But what makes it more interesting is the crown mouldings. These crown mouldings show a variety of frozen in animation entities on a plinth cemented along a brick wall. To complement its features, T-shaped cutters from the plinth shares a similar pattern to that along the walls of the Pyramid of the Moon and Guatemala. Yet, no chemical analysis has been tested to determine its cement compounds. This technology doesn't just come out of nowhere, it's a technology that was either brought over by the ancient beings long before the Roman and Chinese empires got a hold of it, or by a stroke of luck 6,000 years ago. Feeling a bit gobsmacked? Don't be. The idea of cementing bricks has been around since Gunung Padang's development. Could the builders at Gunung Padang pass down this new technology to Angkor Wat and India? Before you go on a headspin, here is something else that got me enthusiastically curious. According to archaeologists, at the time of its excavation, they assumed that these structures were built in stages, that the Buddhist monks would have obtained architectural drawings to construct them either at different times or simultaneously with a different design. None are alike. Whether the missing pyramids on these square stone bases were shaped to hold a partial step-style pyramid remains unknown. But what makes the matter more fascinating is the sculptured entities around the circumference on one of the square stone bases. Although it is said these entities represent Buddhist deities attributed to the manifold, there is another theory, that these entities would have been ancient beings from afar that brought with them ancient high technology that manufactured this ruin. The rest of the complex reveal many square and round bases cemented to the ground. These bases may have held up an obelisk in its place. Obelisks that resemble like the ones in Karnak and Axiom in Ethiopia. Although archaeologists have placed the age of the ruin to be around 3rd century BC, alternative ones theorized that this ruin may date as far back as the last ice age. Archaeologists place the age of the ruin to be around 2,500 years old, but only as the operation of the area, not its construction. I'm leaning more towards an older timestamp built around the Giza pyramids, Angkor Wat, and the Teotihuacan pyramids era. The aesthetics is a giveaway. It's highly improbable that the monks had prior knowledge and practical application to build this geometric wonder. And why would they have purposely chosen this particular area to point to the site north? No blueprint, no plan for development, and no written text of any kind has been found. Yet whoever they were had it drafted on their drawing board, a pre-planned model that correctly aligned it to point towards north. What does that tell you? In the year 1193 CE, the complex was raided and set alight by a Turkic Muslim invader, Bakhtiar Khaliji, who mistook it for an imperial fortification. According to folklore, the Mughals set fire to the site and let it burn for 3 whole months that caused the Buddhist monks to be driven out. Today, this site is an architectural masterpiece, held sacred by the Buddhist monks who preserved the structural integrity, became the founding fortress of education. A centre that housed thousands of stone tablets and scrolls in 3 huge libraries safeguarding knowledge written by writers, philosophers, explorers, and inventors that housed exclusive technologies and explored findings that we will never know. Thankfully, Nalanda University and Library is now a re-established ruin, thanks to one aspiring archaeologist, restoration efforts, unveiling more clues that might answer the origin of its creation. Until now, no one has pointed the finger on the identity of the true builders, as there is no written evidence and blueprint found anywhere on or near the ruin. Like its sibling library in Alexandria, it was a dream come true for Ashoka, who idolized Alexandria the Great's ambition whilst tackling a political title that kept him in power thanks to one emperor's ingenious objective. But little did they know that soon after their deaths, this fortress of learning was left vulnerable to a great catastrophe. If there is one thing to be learned about Nalanda's tragedy, it is this: that education should not be left in the hands of the chosen few, nor should it be limited to a specific kind of people. That it should be shared amongst those who have a passionate heart for higher learning. To help us rise above the norm, to prepare us for a battle of minds, and to greatly empower us with the most powerful assets on earth: knowledge. It's a crying shame that all good things end up in the wrong hands. What does that tell you? Never hire emperors to be business managers. They'll bankrupt a business within a week. If only they could look into a crystal ball and show them the consequences from their future actions. Yet you can't tame a wild boar. They're just too feral for their own good. In the next video, I'll be exploring another ancient ruin that sits on top of a ginormous boulder overlooking a lush valley in the middle of nowhere. That's all for now.